Next speaker, Füstös Luca, is just 15 years old, studies at Tatai Református High School, and she is in her sophomore year at Engame Akadémia. She is also an active member of the Engame Club, which made her realize how important it is. No problem. How important it is to develop her public speaking skills. Actually, she made huge steps to do so by participating in this conference and also receiving professional feedback from the Morgan Stanley mentor team. This year, she has decided to examine the world from as many aspects as possible and grab every opportunity to get new impulses. According to Luca, this is essential to get closer to knowing what one wants to do in the future. Talking about the future, how do you imagine the world in 100 years? There are plenty of environmental disasters in our world. Our climate seems to be getting worse and worse every year. What can you do to avoid or reduce these disasters? Luca is going to chase these answers. In her talk, do you want to change the future?
Imagine that you live in a small bunker without a chance to see the sun again. Because on the surface, the air is toxic and the sun is dangerous. Or imagine that you live in a city where trees and plants are everywhere. There is no smog, and animals are still existing and not just like dinosaurs to us. Which world would you like to live in? I want to live in the second one, and because of it, I do many small things around me. You know, I recycle my trash, I use public transportation and my bike when it's possible. You know, just the usuals. But I had to figure it out that this won't be enough to solve the whole problem. Because there are other polluters with bigger effect on the nature that I alone could ever balance. Recently, I was in Egypt. It was an amazing experience. The people were very nice and always smiling at us, and the ancient buildings were amazing. However, it was heartbreaking to see that trash were everywhere. There was tons of it in the streets. It really bothered me, so I asked the local man about it, and he said, "Yeah, it's a big problem, but we are used to it. Our population is very big, and it's only because of it." He obviously didn't like trash, but he didn't do anything to try to make a change. He just accepted it. 100 years ago, zoo wasn't the only place where you could see animals. Now more and more species are disappearing. There are countries where is no bugs. But that's sort of good for us, right? No mosquitoes. But we have to think about the consequences. If there are no bugs, who will pollinate our plants? No one. People, if they want to make food in China, the only way to do is to do it manually. Let's make another example of trash. You probably all know Coca-Cola, right? What do you think? How much plastic do they produce in 1 second? You have a number? It is 95 kilograms per second. Can you imagine that? What do you think? How many seconds would be needed to get this room completely filled? 3, maybe even less. You don't like that picture, do you? And companies know that. That's why they are acting like they care about the environmental issues. But they still don't do anything because it's just cheaper to them to sponsor environmental events and do small things but don't actually change. They are not being better and better. They are just stuck in their place. But aren't we the same a bit? Aren't we trying to greenwash our own consciousness to feel a bit better? We tell ourselves that not we are the problem. We tell that we do everything we can. But is that true? Maybe we even recycle plastic. But let me tell you a fact. Probably wherever you throw your plastic bottle, it still won't be recycled, because it's still cheaper for the companies to just produce more and more than actually recycle it. This topic is full of questions. How can we reduce the trash we are making? How can we clean the oceans? How can we stop climate change? But the biggest of all, are we ready to make sacrifices? Anyway, who is responsible for ruining our environment? The governments, companies, us? It could be the government. You know, they could make laws, raise awareness through education. They have the whole school system for it. Or they could invest in many economical friendly products in many fields, for example, in energy. Or is it the companies? If every company would really care, then I think half of the problem would already be solved. Or is it us? We make a lot of small decisions every day. We decide whom are we supporting with our time and money. Everyone says it's the other's fault. We are only pointing to each other because it's easier to face the thing that we are doing wrong. We have to stop this, because in this way, nothing will ever change. In the end, I think it's our responsibility, because we know that companies or governments will not change. We need to make the first step, because no one else ever will. We need to be united and put pressure on them. If you think about it, they depend on us. They all need one thing, popularity. Because if no one buys their products or votes for them, they will need to change or they will disappear. Of course, a lot of people say technology will save us all. We are making big steps every year, but let's be a bit more realistic. We don't have time we can spend on waiting, because we don't have time. Probably all of you in this room have heard about these topics. Then why did I choose it? A part of it, that I'm young, passionate, I have a burning fire in me that says I can change the world and truly make it a better place. But it's not all. I don't see anyone around me is doing anything. I feel I have to make the first step, because no one will. I am afraid what my future will look like, and I can't just stand and watch how a few people ruin it. I want to have a planet where I can live. Why don't we make sacrifices? Why don't we take the necessary steps? Is our comfort really more important than our future? After all, I still think it's a great first step to do small individual things around you. But if you want to do more, then join into your local environmental community and be an active member of it. We need to take actions now, or we won't have a future we want.
Thank you for that speech, and I have a question for you. So that you mentioned that we should make big companies realize how destructive what they are doing really is. So what would you do if you were the CEO of one of these big companies?
Well, this is a really hard and complex question, and it depends on if I have a physical product or not. Of course, if I have one, then I would take care of the packaging and look after where does it came from. And also, I would check my workers' life and how do they live, because I think in a company it's really important that the people who are working in it are satisfied with their life.
Perfect, thank you.